everybody. Of course, it's me. Thank you for visiting today. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. So, this week I have been touching a lot of topics around white supremacy and black women. And today is really not going to be any different. Of course, Stephon Clark and his story has been in the news since it is still an active investigation going on, since he was another black person who was murdered by law enforcement. And this occurred in the city of Sacramento, California. Now, I've been noticing outside of the legitimate sources, simply speaking on behalf of the autopsies and also on behalf of the family, so the lawyers speaking for that too, I have seen online a lot of rhetoric around what Stephon Clark was saying on Twitter before he passed away that was completely irrelevant to him being murdered by police. A lot of black people are now starting to switch sides from being in support of anti-police brutality to now because Stephon Clark was speaking about why he does not like black women, really from his neighborhood. Now apparently that's enough of a reason for him to be murdered without real reason. Now, to be very straightforward about his story, a lot of people may not have know the logistics of it. He was in the midst of trying to steal people's cars and steal things out of people's cars in the area where he was shot. And by the time the police caught up to him, he had already made it to his grandparents' backyard. And that is somewhat shown on some of the police footage that they have made available to the general public. But what isn't necessarily clear is when he was initially shot, where was he shot, how many times was he shot, why was he shot in that way, things of that nature. Some of the arguments that white people are putting out, or white officers, is that he was shot in his side, and I guess the pressure from the bullet turned him around to make his back face the police, and they continued to fire. Now, from the video I saw, from the aerial footage of the helicopter showing, the night vision. Hold on, guys. People always call me during my lives. I really hate that. So funny. You gotta love family. From the aerial view that they do show us right before they cut it off when they begin shooting, it's always funny that they manage to do that every damn time. He's clearly still running away from the police. So I didn't personally see a moment where he turned to face the officers. I wouldn't even understand what reason he would have to do that. Because again, some of the arguments are that he was supposedly armed, or police thought that he was armed, but it was only a cell phone. So still, to me, it makes no sense for him to turn around just to increase his chances of being shot. He already knew what the situation was, so that's just what the fuck it was. Now, for me, for what, again, I observed, it looked like he was shot from the back, and while he was falling down, you can still see the fire being released from the police officer's guns, and they continued to fire while he was on the ground. Not sure why that continued to happen. I'm also not sure why it was a policy that was already strictly enforced with the Sacramento Police Department when they are engaging in these types of responses to turn their audio off or turn their body cam off. To me, that just sends up a lot of red flags, and it almost sounds like the police now are trained to cover up their tracks when they know they're about to kill somebody. And normally the person that they're going to kill is the black person. So with that being said, it did seem like, regardless of if he was stealing a car or doing anything else, legitimate or not, for them to arrest him, the intent at the end of the day was that they were going to kill him. Now back to the Twitter nonsense. I've been seeing that apparently he had a page on Twitter and he was saying that he was not a fan of dark-skinned black women, that a lot of black people that he see walking around his neighborhood look like they're on some strong drugs. Just typical comments that a lot of black people normally say in their daily course of activity, whether they're happy or not about their current circumstance. I also saw that he said something about, he identifies his children as Asian and Indian. The mother of his kids is clearly Asian. You can see it in the thumbnail. And clearly they produced black children. But nonetheless, he did, like I said, he said certain things that just sounded like he was not interested in his children having the same come up as black people that he did, which is why he chose instead to make a family with an Asian woman instead of a black woman. And for me, those are things that even my parents suggested I should do. Even though I'm fully black and my mother is fully black, she's actually darker than I am. She would also say things like that my kids will likely have a better life if I decided to date and marry and produce outside of my race versus maintaining the black blood and keeping it going down for generations. And I'm not understanding why people online are trying to make it seem like these kinds of messages amongst the black community is something new or something specific to him, because it's not. A lot of black people nowadays are trying to encourage interracial relationships. A lot of advertisements on TV show interracial couples. So for me, when I see these kinds of things online, and then they try to make an excuse as to why that was probable cause for him to die, or at least that's just one less black person that we have to see tweeting about disliking other black people. To me, that's just crazy. And it sounds like you guys are damn near on the side of the people who are killing us, because you're saying that this shit is okay, that was his wake-up call to die because he wasn't a fan of black women. And again, I'm clearly a black woman my damn self, and I don't mind speaking against other black women because I know what black women do, what they're capable of, and how they treat black men. So I wasn't at all surprised when he was saying those kinds of things, even considering the city of Sacramento and what goes on in that area. I was really not surprised when he said what he said on his pages. I don't really care about how old he was, or how long ago it was when he said the comments, because the comments still existed for people to see. And there's no telling what other things he may have said on his social media pages that people aren't going to mention, just to maintain this narrative that he was anti-black people, even though he's black anyway. And this was a very similar narrative that they were doing with O.J. Simpson when he was accused of killing his ex-wife, Nicole. A lot of black people, because they saw that he was basically a token Negro, he lived in a white community, he only associated himself with white people. The only thing that was really black about him was his skin. Other than that, he was basically white people's dog. So when he was arrested and charged, because black people already felt a certain type of way towards the actions that O.J. Simpson does in his daily course of activity, that was reason enough for them to simply be like, well, he must have killed her. We shouldn't be on his side. He's team white people. When the point of the matter was, it wasn't about what he did. during his daily routine. The point was they were accusing a black man of a crime they knew he didn't commit. And they also knew that black people weren't really going to have his back like that. And they knew they would likely get away with it. Although he was not guilty of the charges, they eventually got him on something else. Just because they could. Black people were not going to have his back again. They didn't. And he just was released not too long ago. And he's still experiencing the same exact bullshit that he was when he was initially arrested because of Nicole's death. So, with that being said, a lot of black people nowadays, they will try to find any reason not to back up a clearly racially motivated murder or crime that white people will create on behalf of fucking our whole communities up. And hi, Melanin Nation, thanks for coming back again. So, for me, I am definitely going to be behind Stephon Clarks and his family. This is not a situation about us getting petty and trying to say, well, he said this online or he said that online. That's not what this situation is about at all. It was a black man who was murdered by police. He did not need to be murdered for that at all. And this is not the first time that a black person was murdered this way. It's not going to be the last time a black person is murdered this way. And although there has been protest in reaction to it, the type of protest that black people and white people and any other races in between or outside of that who have shown up to protest for this situation is not really going to help in the way. See, even Melanin Nation said that he was like Tommy Sotomayor. Not at all the same. Tommy Sotomayor sits online all day spewing hatred about any and everything. And now he's just completely off the radar. But us marching and us protesting at game events and in the streets, what are you doing that for? It's not going to do anything. They'll probably say on the news for like 5 minutes that people are walking around causing traffic, but it's not really going to suit or change anything that's happening. Even Melanin Nation said that Stephon was spewing hatred towards black women. He was blaming everything on black women, excuse me. Again, that's not what the situation was about. And even if it wasn't Stephon and it was somebody else who didn't speak negatively of black women, people are going to go through men's information with a fine-tooth comb just to find any reason for us to not stand behind this situation. And again, it's not about his family. It's not about his funeral and who showed up. It's not about any of that shit. A black man was unjustly murdered by police. You saw the tweets that they want us to see. We haven't seen every single tweet he's posted. And we don't need to see every single tweet. That's not the point. He wasn't murdered because of his tweets. It doesn't make any sense, because if I was murdered by police and somebody wanted to say that I was against black men or black women, they can easily pull up certain videos and certain clips off of my YouTube channel and try and create a narrative against me. So I can't say the same thing. It's not fair. It's really contradictive almost that black people will try to find any and every excuse to go against your own people. That's what it is. You're excusing the police for killing him because of a tweet. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. We cannot continue making excuses for white people, because that's all that it is. Having all these tweets come out, and the cops probably didn't. That's what I'm saying. The police officers aren't going to be reading through Stephon Clark's tweets. They didn't know anything about that before they killed him. The only thing they knew about him was that he was a black guy. And he was going into people's cars. But all that we see on TV and all that... My sister keeps on calling me. I hate her right All that we see online right now is that, number one, he was killed. Number two, he posted some tweets that people didn't like. And number three, he belongs to an interracial family that he made on his own. We don't really have too much more background than that. So, of course, Black people are going to only go off of that. And for me, I can't really base my judgment off of how he feels about Black women to excuse his death. That's just, it's two completely different levels of maturity and pettiness. Hey, give me just a second.